this evening with us. We are delighted that you could come. My name is Brad Bright. I'll be emceeing this evening. I'm on the board of iVoter Guide. I don't know how they let me on, but they did. Between Richard and Art Alley, I couldn't do anything other than say, yes, of course, I would love to serve. So I'm from Orlando. I'm not a Texan. Never lived in Texas, never paid taxes in Texas. However, my son went to Baylor. So I paid tuition in Texas, and I assure you, I would have rather paid taxes. It's true. Well, it's fun to be here tonight. I'm wearing my cufflinks my dad gave me, that Governor Connolly gave him. They're from the naval uniforms of the officers of the Republic of Texas. Before my dad passed away, he said, "Is there anything of mine that you would like?" I said, "You know those cufflinks Governor Connolly gave you? I want those." That's the only thing I ask. These cufflinks and his Bible are two of the things I cherish most in the world. Well, it's great to be here. We're going to get started. Richard Ford, whom everyone here knows, doesn't really need any introduction, other than the fact that he strong-armed me into doing this. He is going to lead us with our invocation this evening, and then we'll move on. Richard.
Thank you, Brad. You know, as I look out here, what a blessing it is. I see Norm, and I had a real surprise. Trying to mess me up. My dear friend and former business partner, John Hazel, just showed up. And, you know, when I look at those two guys, I just can't help but just be so thankful how the Lord's blessed me. So anyway, if I can recover, I will sing grace for us. You know, dear Heavenly Father, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you that you love us. You love us so much that you sent your Son, and that we are going to live for eternity with you. Thank you, Lord, that you actually live in and through us and will just let you. Thank you, Lord, that you gave us the freest, most prosperous, most evangelical country in the history of the world. And Lord, I just thank you that you spared us 2 years ago. And Lord, please spare us in the next 2 weeks. Let it be that your people, that we the people of the United States, that according to Romans 13, Lord, you gave us the highest level of government authority because we get to choose our leaders. But Lord, too many of the times we have not been good stewards of that authority. So Lord, teach us to be good stewards. Teach your people especially to be good stewards so that we can retain the freedom, the religious freedom, so that we can share your love with other people, with our neighbors and with those around the world. So Lord, I just thank you for the dear people in this room that love you, that love our country. And I just pray that you will bless this evening, and that through it you will be glorified, not only tonight, but over the next 2 weeks of early voting, and over the next 2 years, and that we will lift you up so that all men will be drawn to you. Thank you, Lord. What a blessing. Thank you for the food. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Richard. As you can tell, Richard is passionate about Jesus, and passionate about his faith, and passionate about America.
Thank you all for taking time out of this crazy time of the year to be here with us tonight. We very much so appreciate it, and hope we're blessed to have you here, and hope you are blessed through this evening. As we gather to honor those who have walked the talk, there's no more appropriate time to talk about the difference between talking the talk and walking the talk, and what it means to our state and to our nation as we choose men and women for office who will walk the talk. Because that is the mission of iVoter Guide. to equip voters with the information that they need to identify candidates who will support Judeo-Christian values, not just the issue of the day. And each issue is important, but it's important that the values are supported. And if the candidate shares our values, they'll stand to comport on all the issues. I want to let you know you can start your salads if you haven't started eating, please, in case you're waiting. So choosing candidates who will share your values isn't just the right thing to do. It's the economical thing to do. If you think about all the money, the millions of dollars, and the hours that are spent trying to hold our elected officials accountable, and iVoter Guide, we have a better solution. Let's work together now and elect good people to begin with. From American Family Association Action, to Family Research Council Action, to Wall Builders, to the American Pastors Network, to My Faith Votes, there are more than 30 conservative organizations who count on the iVoter Guide to provide reliable information to their members, both to validate their message and as they seek to sway undecided voters. Now, voters are hungry for information about candidates, reliable information. I know that I am as a voter. Aren't you? And more voters are coming to trust iVoter Guide before they go to the polls. They're fed up with the media. They don't always trust what the candidates say or the messaging that they see. They want information that they can trust. And that is the niche that iVoter Guide fills. For organizations and for individuals, information you can trust. So we don't endorse candidates. We don't take money from candidates. We don't tell people who to vote for. All we've done is the due diligence that most voters don't have the skills or the time to do themselves. To find out what a candidate has done, not just what they say, so that voters can see how a candidate might vote if they're elected, or how they did vote if they've already served. We look at a candidate's donations because seeing who somebody gives money to and who they accept money from shows us where their heart is and what's truly important to them. Donations plus vote ratings and endorsements from both liberal and conservative organizations. When you add to that an issue survey that covers not only fiscal issues, but social issues and even spiritual issues, all gathered to paint a portrait, as complete a picture as possible of what's important to each candidate, based upon reliable data without any spin. Finally, we have hundreds of volunteers across the country who pour through the data and they evaluate each candidate. Now, for an average voter, which is about 10 years ago what I was, that is all they need to see. But the data is there. It's reliable data to back up the evaluation. iVoter Guide has done this research on all the Senate candidates that are up this election cycle, all the House candidates that are up this cycle in all 50 states, all across the nation. If you pull out, there's a handout that's in front of you if your hand is not too busy eating your salad. And if you look at page 2, it has a table with an example of how the iVoter Guide data, I'll show you looks something like this. On the back page, on page 2, it gives you an example of the iVoter Guide data comparing some key Senate races that are on the ballot in November. And I would ask you to look at the Ted Cruz, it's Texas Senate race, so Ted Cruz versus Beto O'Rourke. Now the graph at the left shows their evaluation. Couldn't be more different, very conservative versus very liberal. But the chart at the right tells you the data that backs it up. Their vote ratings, 100% AFA versus 0%. Their endorsements, their donations. The difference could not be more clear. And that's just a couple of examples. We've done this all across the nation. We don't stop at the federal level. In 11 states, we also do this research for the statewide races. And in 7 of those states, we researched the state Senate and the state House in those states. That's an additional 581 races for a total of 2,410 candidates that we are researching and evaluating. And don't forget, the state legislature will be in charge of redistricting in 2020. We can't forget how important that is. So while maintaining control of the U.S. House and Senate is crucial, but as we motivate voters to go to the polls, we can't forget that there are other races on the ballot. So if you flip over your handout, On page 1, it gives you an example of the impact that iVoter Guide has. So it lists for you the states where iVoter Guide provides research for more than just the federal races. From 3 to 18 races on the ballot in our key states, covering offices like governor and attorney general down to state legislature. Think about it. Can you name who's running for the Court of Criminal Appeals or the comptroller? iVoter Guide can, and it does. It's a cost-effective way to impact multiple races and the best return on your investment for supporting candidates across the ballot. By working with like-minded organizations and providing data-driven, reliable information, iVoter Guide is growing simply by shining the light on darkness, without aggression and without fear tactics. We adopted a new business model last year, and since then we've grown from 12 partners to 30. And as of today, we have released general election voter guides in, James just told me, 45 states. 5 more should come out this week. And we have been used by almost 700,000 voters this year. So we've had a 50% growth over last cycle, which is great in a midterm year. But even better is the percentage of Republican primary voters that use iVoter Guide in key states. From 3% in Pennsylvania to 9% in Texas, and in some Texas districts, it's as high as 20%. So what can happen when more voters are equipped with the facts? And a good example is in House District 114 in the Dallas area. Lisa Lou Ryan is in the room. So in this district, Lisa Lou Ryan challenged Jason Fiala in the primary. Now, you all know, replacing an incumbent is difficult. A moderate incumbent is difficult. But iVoter Guide reveals the truth and makes it more possible. Of the 12,000 votes cast in that primary, 6,400 were cast for Lisa, and 2,400 of them came to iVoter Guide first. That's 40% of Lisa's votes. Now, we didn't do it alone. We did it working together with our partners, AFA, FRC, and especially Texas Values, who is very active in getting that vote out. But iVoter Guide didn't spend any promotional money at all. All we did was the research, provided the facts, just the truth. Once again, the only one time is iVoter Guide tested what could happen if we spent money promoting our candidate research, and in 2016, we did that test. We noticed there was, down in the Houston area, a young conservative lawyer who decided he was fed up with his moderate representative who kept getting elected over and over again, decided to throw his hat in the ring, probably literally. He managed to make it to the runoff, and we noticed that that race just was a showcase of how iVoter Guide's research clearly stated which candidate has conservative values and which candidate did not. We spent just $8,000 on targeted marketing in that district using social media and robodials, and 500 voters in that district used iVoter Guide. And that candidate won by 23 votes. He's in the room, his name is Bristow Hayden, and last year he was one of the Walk the Talk recipients. Stories like Lisa Lou Ryan's and Bristow Hayden's are what iVoter Guide would like to replicate in 2019, in 2020, and beyond in key states and races across the country. But to be ready, we have work to do, and we can't do it without your help. To be ready for those races, we need to research. We have, the funds raised tonight at this event will help us lay that groundwork. It is our research that shines the light on the rhinos and reveals conservative opportunities. So we have a lot to do. Opportunities are clear. So beyond November, in addition to expanding our coverage, we're preparing to launch a new website and a new logo as we focus on revealing the truth about candidates. I'll give you a sneak peek of our new look and our new logo. You should see it on the book that's out there. Our plan is to roll out a new website in 2019 in states that have elections in 2019. You probably didn't know Mississippi, Louisiana, Virginia, and New Jersey elect their state legislatures in odd years. So we can test our new website in the odd year. I'm thinking that maybe there's a municipal race or two that we could make a difference in. Maybe, I don't know, is there anything happening in Dallas County next year that I'm going to research my help? And beyond that, even if everything goes perfectly in 14 days, we've got to keep our eyes on 2020. 2020 is important because it's a presidential year. The House and the Senate at the federal level are going to be even as important as they are now, and the state legislatures are even more important because they will control drawing the district lines. Keeping control of the state houses in 2020 is key. So we're calling it our Vision 2020. Get it? Vision 2020? Ready? Okay, and so what we'd like to do is increase our coverage of statewide races, to grow and research more state legislatures, because that is really key. And in states where we have the resources available, possibly extending down the ballot to a key county in that state. We see iVoter Guide, we see God working through iVoter Guide every day in ways we could not even have imagined. And we're thankful that you're all here with us tonight and that you join with us in this work because we can't do it alone. We all want to preserve the freedom to practice and to preach our faith. And the most important step that we can take is to protect that most important thing is by electing people who will fight to preserve that freedom by walking the talk, like the gentleman that we're honoring here tonight. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your attention, and enjoy your dinner. Has everybody enjoyed your dinner? Please feel free to keep eating, but I would like to be respectful of your time, and we're going to move back into our program, but you can continue to eat, and they will be offering you coffee a little bit later. But as we move into the awards portion of tonight, I would like to tell you a little bit about the award that we're going to be presenting this evening. It's called the Walk the Talk Award. We actually call it the Richard A. Ford Walk the Talk Award. But as most of us in this room know, as Christians and followers of Jesus Christ, we know what walking the talk means. It means that you're going to do what you say. And we use Jesus as our ultimate role model. So he says to do it, and we do it. 1 John 2:6 says, whoever abides in him abides in whoever says he abides in him ought to walk in the way in which he walked. Not say one thing and do something else, which is sadly too common in some elected officials. Walking the talk means to be a man or a woman of integrity. Someone that understands that Bill Federer quote that I showed at the end of my earlier presentation, that the most important thing that we can do is to tell people about Jesus Christ. But the second most important thing we can do is to preserve the freedom to do the most important thing. Somebody who understands that is somebody who will walk the talk. Last year we honored our founder, Richard A. Ford, and we named the award after him, and he's already shaken his head. Richard is a godly man who does everything to the glory of God. He seeks to do just his best in all he does. He's been a mentor and a role model to me and his family and those he's worked with both inside and outside the legislature. So we're here this evening to celebrate elected officials who have, like Richard, walked the talk. They talked the talk when they campaigned as conservatives, and then they walked the talk when they made the tough decisions when they had that opportunity in the legislature, and they followed biblical principles. So I'm going to ask Brad Bright to come up here and help me present our awards, and the flow is going to be that Brad will introduce the award recipient, and they'll come up and they'll have a chance to talk to you guys for 3 whole minutes, and then we're going to give their award and take a picture, and then we'll move on to the next one.
Logistics. Well, the first person we're going to honor this evening is a true American hero. Can everybody hear me? Do I need to put this up?
This better? All right, put this up. He's a true American hero. This is a man who was in the Pentagon on 9/11, and he was severely injured. He is an American hero. He is a decorated military veteran, Lieutenant Colonel
Ryan Burkle. We owe you a huge, huge debt of gratitude for standing on the wall for us. And we are grateful to you. Since that time, he has retired from the military. And he has run for office, has been elected to the Senate here in Texas, where he's been a stalwart of the conservative movement, standing for conservative values, for biblical values for all of us. He's a native of Fort Worth, so you are a native Texan, right? You admit to being a native Texan. He's a native Texan, so he's okay. So in the Senate, he does the job. He's the chairman of the Senate Committee on Natural Resources and Economic Development. He serves as chairman of Senator Ted Cruz's 22-member Service Academy Nominations Board. In other words, he's helping to choose the men and women who will be the leaders of our military in the future. So that should be a reassurance to all of us that men like this are on the front line helping to choose the young men and women who will lead us in the future. Brian and his wife Mel, 31 years, live in Greenberg, Texas. For 13 years, he ran, the Face of Fire Ministries, assisting and encouraging critical burn survivors and wounded servicemen and women. The Burkles have one son, Matt, in 2013 graduated from Texas Tech, is that correct? Graduate from Texas Tech, still a good Texan. And they have a fabulous daughter, one says Anne Marie. Now, are they here this evening?
No, sir, they're over there.
Okay. So the audience won't introduce them. And I understand you have a grandson.
That is correct, the Nugget.
And the Nugget, that's his nickname. So I'm going to introduce you, Senator Ryan Birdwell, as the proud grandfather of the Nugget. Come on.
This is the 3 minutes, right?
It's 3 minutes.
All right. Well, you'll know I'm a native Texan when I make this joke to you. It is great to be back in Dallas, the most exciting suburb of Fort Worth. Hooah! Now, I really am humbled at. I really don't know what to say. There's not a thank you in the English language that will give you the rigor of how you touch my heart. There's times in my first session, there were moments of alone, trying to be what you say you are for 4 sessions, and now coming into the 5th, making hard votes, because there's plenty of hard votes out there that aren't liked on our side of the aisle sometimes. It is hard to be what you are championing tonight, and the fact that you're giving us these awards tells me how much you appreciate it, and it doesn't go unnoticed, because so many times, when you run for office, you put a sign up that says, "I'm your complaint department," and more often than not, that's what you get. And then look, we're in that business. When you're elected official, you are the complaint department. But it's nice to get a compliment every once in a while, and I very much appreciate it. Thank you so much for this award tonight. God bless you, and I'll leave you with this one thought. There are too many men and women buried in cemeteries around this country, whether it's Arlington, or military installations, or otherwise, that paid too big of a price for you, your colleagues, your friends, to not get out and decide to continue the flame of liberty. Because I assure you, what you see in this country today and what we are dealing with, and the nature of our political opposition and the direction they want to take this country is not a country in which I want to live in, and it's certainly not a country I would have ever bled for. God bless you. Hooah.
The next recipient of the Richard Ford Walk the Talk Award. Richard's cringy, that Richard. You've loved it for us.
right piece of paper. That would actually help, right? Unless, Brian, you want us to introduce you again?
Well, the junior senator in the room tonight spells Brian the wrong way.
Yes, we have another Brian, Senator Brian Hughes. He served his first term in the Texas State Senate, representing the 16 counties of Senate District 1 in northeast Texas. Prior, he represented District 5 in the Texas House of Representatives for 7 terms. You have a lot of staying there. We're grateful to you. Stay in there, keep moving forward. He was born in East Texas. He attended Tyler Junior College, but here's the best thing about him. He attended law school while my son attended college. Baylor. So, there we go. I learned that as a dad of a Baylor student. So, good pedigree there. So we were chatting a little earlier when we found out we had that in common. We both were excited by that, as a matter of fact. So he received his degree in law from Baylor in 1995. Brian then served as law clerk to U.S. Judge Williams Steger of Tyler from 95 to 97. He's received numerous awards for his work in the legislature, including the Taxpayer Champion Award from Texas for Fiscal Responsibility. In 2011, Texas Right to Life named Brian Hughes the pro-life whip of the Texas House. Brian was the first member of his family to receive a bachelor's degree, if I remember that's correct. So he is still on the shoulders of his parents who gave him a platform and has lived the American dream. Brian, you're as a small businessman, you learned to work hard, you understand the value of the dollar, and now you brought that to the Senate of Texas. We need more guys like you. Please come on up.
Thanks, Brian. My name is Brian Hughes, and many of us have met before. I want to give you some great news. The legislature is not in session, so relax, enjoy your dessert. Our founders wisely gave us this part-time legislature, and we're thankful for that. My goodness, so many things I could share in this brief time. Look at Mr. Ford here. As a young man, as a college student, I was at an event somewhat like this, Free Market Foundation, right? So many of us remember that. I went to an event like this that were honoring the most conservative members of the legislature. And I knew Richard Ford by reputation, and everybody just sort of knows, back before it was cool to watch those legislators vote on pro-family and pro-life and religious freedom issues. By God's grace, he was doing it and holding people accountable, and nobody else was that I'm aware of. I remember going to that event, and I remember Norm Miller was there. I knew that I liked Interstate Batteries because they had Paul Hardy on their advertisements, and they were good bands. I had no idea what a godly man he was, and learned so much about him since then. I could go around the room. John Mazel, I'm still borrowing your gospel applications, brother, that you gave us years ago. So many folks here I can thank you. Many places you can be putting your time, your good name, your resources. So thank you for doing this. What a blessing to live in a country where the government still works for the people, and that voice still does matter. As I bring my remarks to a close, I want to introduce to you Scott Wall. I'm not going to give him the microphone, but Scott Wall is State Director of Capital Commission. He's a full-time missionary to the Capital community. Teaches weekly Bible studies, verse-by-verse Bible studies, really being used of the Lord. I won't tell you the whole story, but just recently we saw someone who took a very different political stance than most of us do in this room, a real leader, I'm going to say, on the other side. And that person came to Christ in a real dramatic conversion. Just one of the many ways the Lord is working. So pray for Scott Wall. John Mazel, I'll just say this. I know it feels like our country is changing so rapidly, right? It's like we read in the New Testament and we look at world history, and in the history of the world and in most places today, Christians are a small, persecuted minority. That's kind of the norm, right? But here in America, wow, by God's grace, we've been the exception to the rule. And Christians have been running things and blessed with so much materially. Now, I'm not saying that's has to change, but we see these things coming, and we're just reminded how hostile to the things of the Lord are so many in the world are. That seems to be on the rise. But aren't you thankful? Aren't you thankful that the Lord is still in control, still knows what He's doing? I was reading moment ago. In Psalm 113, blessed be the name of the Lord from this time forth and forevermore, from the rising of the sun to its going down. The Lord's name is to be praised. The Lord is high above all nations, His glory above the heavens. You know that. I just want to remind myself and encourage us. We love our country. We love our state. We don't believe God has done this, and yet we're going to keep fighting. But I'm so glad. Aren't you glad? I'm so glad I can say my citizenship is in heaven. As much as I love my country and my state, even though I'm a guilty sinner deserving of judgment, the Lord Jesus, God Himself, loved me so much that He left heaven and came down here to this earth, took on human form, lived a perfect, sinless life. And then on that cross, He actually bore my sins and your sins and the sins of the whole world. And of course, having paid that price, on the third day, He rose from the dead, ascended into heaven. He's coming back quickly. We'll be busy about His business in the meantime. You know that. I'm just here to encourage you, to thank you for all you're doing. Please continue to pray and do what you do. We're going to serve the Lord with you. We want to come alongside you. So pray for us. Tell us how we can do a better job. If you have any complaints, we can speak privately after the event is over. But we do want to hear from you. We're so thankful for you. My message tonight to you is thank you, thank you, thank you. God bless you.
Are you the first one coming? Right here? Well, to both of you gentlemen, thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your hard work on behalf of the state of Texas and this nation. We're grateful. Well, now we're going to shift gears here a little bit. We have one more award tonight, and then we'll hear from this gentleman. It's the Lifetime Achievement Award. This gentleman is the Executive Director of the American Culture and Faith Institute. He's the President of Meta Information, and he is a noted conservative pollster. I think that's an understatement. He's more than noted. He sold more books based on survey research related to matters of faith than any author in American history. He's written more than 50 books, many New York Times bestsellers about cultural trends, leadership, spiritual development, church dynamics. Parenthetically, let me say, George, my dad wrote over 100 books on issues of faith, so you're not done yet. You have a long way to go. So no retirement anytime soon, right? Okay, good. Good. We're looking forward to you hitting that 100 mark as well, and no pressure, I want you to know. Well, George's most recent book is his first book about politics. You realize what that means? It means he had to write 50 books first to get the courage just to address the issue of politics. So George, we're glad you finally got there. It's about time, and we're grateful to you to keep it up. Anyway, the name of the book is The Day Christians Changed America. How Christian conservatives put Trump in the White House and redirected America's future. Now, if you open the book, you'll realize that's not an overstatement. The Christian conservatives put Trump in the White House. And he unpacks that for us in a way that us average guys can understand. He's one of the most influential Christian leaders alive today in America. And he's certainly in contention for the most voted. So George, please come on up. So for the families for families back in gratitude, we present you this award.
Can we take a picture first? Picture first? Can I do the middle of this one?
Thank
you very much. I'm, like the senators before me, I don't really quite know what to say. And I didn't realize it was a lifetime achievement award. So that's, I guess that means it's time to retire. Whatever. You gotta go sometime. I appreciate it. You know, when I started doing research, particularly related to faith issues years ago, I knew it was a different approach. There were other people who asked questions in surveys about faith. Nobody really seemed to be trying to dig down and understand what was really going on in America's faith lives. And so we took a different approach. And the reason I did it is first of all, truth matters to me. I think it should matter to all of us. And so rather than continually patting ourselves on the back and saying everything's okay and what isn't is going to be okay, let's get the real lay of the land. And that related to the second reason we did it, which is because I believe you can't make good decisions unless you have good information as the basis of those decisions. So our goal, based on the vision I believe that God gave to me, was to try to provide the church at large in America with current, accurate, and reliable information in bite-sized pieces that could be easily applied to day-to-day ministry. And so if we've been able to help ministries do any of that over the last 35 years or so, I'm grateful to God. It's because of His blessing, not my genius. I just happened to show up in the right place and He chose to use me, so I'm grateful for that. And I'm very grateful for you recognizing that He's used me in that way. What I want to do with the time that I've been given here, and it's limited, and I did learn something over the last couple of weeks trying to put this presentation together. It's an awful lot easier to give a 45-minute presentation than a 15-minute presentation. And so I'm going to try to put into 15 minutes something that makes sense. The natural topic, of course, would be the midterm election, the 2018 election. And it's turned out to be, thankfully, over the last couple of months, it's become much more competitive than it had looked like, let's say, 6 months ago. And so I think November 6th is going to be an interesting day looking at the returns. It's going to go down to the wire. But the one thing that we do know is that this election is not going to be like the 2016 election. If you remember the 2016 election, there were a lot of things that were very unusual about it. The person who won the greatest number of votes lost the election. The person, neither of the major candidates was well liked by the electorate. And in fact, the person who won was the person who had the most negative media coverage during the 3-month period when people were forming their opinions about who they were going to vote for. So it was a very unusual race in those regards, but the most important thing, I think, that once again the media has completely overlooked or hidden, if they have any clue at all, is that it was essentially a race that was determined by people's faith. People voted according to their beliefs, which is always true, but in this case, it was rather unusual. If we look at some of the data there, we broke it out based on our ongoing national surveys, and this is covered in that book that was mentioned the day Christians Changed America, if you want more of the data. But what we found is that Mr. Trump actually won the Christian vote by a 57 to 37% margin. He lost the non-Christian vote by a 62 to 26% margin. Now, the reason he won, even though he had a smaller percentage of the people supporting him, there were a number of statistical reasons for it, but one of those is the fact that we've got so many more people who fit into that Christian category than the non-Christian category. I will tell you, within 25 years, that may well no longer be the case. As we look at the way that faith patterns are changing in this country, we are losing that majority more quickly than anybody ever would have imagined possible. It's interesting, though, if you break out that Christian vote to understand what happened in the course of the election, there are a lot of different categories we can look at. This is a pretty common categorization that I use when I'm looking at our nation's population, how it thinks, how it behaves, and so forth. And in this particular election, to me, the most significant group of all is that one that I've yellowed out up there called SageCons. SAGECONS is an acronym for Spiritually Active, Governance-Engaged Conservatives. Or to define what that means, these are people who are involved in government and politics, not because they enjoy it, but because their faith is uppermost in their life. It's their top priority in life, and they interpret the Bible to tell them that they therefore must be involved in every aspect of culture. We have a responsibility as disciples of Christ to influence every dimension of our society. And so whether we like the government or not, whether we enjoy politics or not, doesn't matter. We've been called to be influence agents in that. And so they take that call seriously. We find that they're better informed, they're more active. There are a lot of things positive we could say about SAGECONs. Most interesting thing to me, I started tracking them, of course, at the beginning of the primaries. And we're, of course, the only company in the country that tracks them. Nobody else even knows they exist. And yet they turned out to be the ones that actually turned the election for Mr. Trump. And what makes that interesting, when Mr. Trump announced that he was going to run, the following month we did a national survey with SAGECONs. We found that only 9% of them said that they intended to support him. You fast forward to the election and you find out that by that time, 93% of them actually voted for him, and that's among the 91% of them who turned out to vote. National turnout about 57%, turnout among SAGECONs 91%. So this gives you a sense of the fact that they believe that God is holding them accountable to show up and vote, and not just to cast a ballot, but to cast an informed ballot that represents his points of view as given to us in the scriptures. Again, it's an interesting election because you had two candidates that, by and large, SAGECONs, evangelicals, and most born-again Christians didn't like. But they had to vote for somebody. They didn't particularly care for Mr. Trump because of all the reasons that you see up there. You know all these things. Very few of us would stand up for his character and say he's a godly kind of guy. We didn't know whether or not we could trust him on the key issues because he's flip-flopped on them so often in the past. He was formerly a registered Democrat, then became a registered Republican. Nobody knew where he stood on anything. We had concerns about if he were president, would he understand the nuances of the issues and the relationships that he'd have to be presiding over on behalf of the people. And of course, he had no political experience at all. So all of these things were concerns of ours. Well, whether we like it or not, this upcoming election is going to be, again, largely about Donald Trump. And so the voting decisions that people make are going to be based on what they know, what they think, and what they've seen with regard to him. I'd suggest to you, though, that it's not just about Donald Trump. And in fact, when the media and the talking heads and everybody else talks about it's a referendum on Donald Trump, they're missing the bigger point, which is actually it's a referendum on the worldview of Americans. Everything we do is based on our worldview. You do what you believe, and our worldview represents the totality of what we believe. And so therein lies the major problem facing America today. We started doing worldview research when I owned the Barna Group. I think we started doing that research in the early to mid-90s. I've been doing it sporadically since then, the last few years. Every year we've been doing a worldview measurement study. And this month, actually, we released this year's data, which is kind of alarming, kind of is an understatement, because it shows that 7% of American adults have a biblical worldview. The predominant worldview in America today is postmodernism. Probably about 70% of Americans, their worldview is dominated by postmodern thought. We're not going to get into all that, but I want to point this out in reference to not just this election, but where we need to go in the future. If all we do is keep focusing on election after election after election, trying to get better candidates, trying to have better advertising, trying to have superior messaging and so forth, we're missing the point. Most people do not have a worldview that will enable them to understand any of that in light of God's truth. And so really the big war for us to be fighting is what we're going to do about worldview in America. You look at the parties, even a lot of people call the Republican Party God's party. I don't think God would call that his party. When only 1 out of every 7 Republicans has a biblical worldview. and that number is declining. So that's really something that we have to take a look at. As we look more specifically at this particular election and where we stand as conservatives, I'd say there are some problems that we have to face, and I've listed 7 of the key ones that I would identify up here. I have to confess, I haven't seen a media report anywhere in the country that lists these, but as a pollster, I would say these are the things that we need to be concerned about. Certainly, the simplest thing to understand is that we're at a numerical disadvantage. Only 1 out of every 4 Americans qualifies as a conservative, not based on what they call themselves, but based on their stands on the issues. I'm not into self-identification. If somebody tells me they're a born-again Christian, I don't believe them until I talk to them about what they believe. If somebody tells me they're a conservative, I don't believe them until I know what they believe on key issues. And so based on that kind of polling, that's how we come to some of these numbers. We know that if this is in some ways a reference on Mr. Trump's achievements in office thus far, again, we have issues because the media has done a masterful job of masking the fact that he's accomplished anything. He's got a list of accomplishments longer than my arm. And yet when we talk with conservatives, much less the rest of the country across the nation, what we find is that 4 out of 5 Republicans can't name 3 things that he's accomplished while he's been in office. Now, shame on the media, but shame on us as well, that we haven't gotten the word out there about the many terrific things that have happened over the last 2 years. Praying and asking that God would use us somehow. Wouldn't it be great if we actually were about church, capital C, and we worked together for a common purpose? And saving America was part of that, so that we have, as the Senator talked about, the freedom to bring other people to Christ and to disciple them in that relationship, and then to turn them loose as agents of transformation in their circles of influence. That's a long-term thing. But let's talk short-term solutions. Number 1, we've got to take a look at the media. We did a big research project where we tried to figure out what causes people to think what they think and do what they do. And again, I don't have time to go through all the data, but the essence of it was the single most influential entities in America today. There are 7 of them that comprise about 70% of the influence on what people think and do in America. And 5 of those 7 are media. And the dominant ones are mainstream media. So if we want to change, we can't keep getting our information and taking our cues from the same place that are leading us down the wrong path today. We've got to change that. Now, what we found in the 2016 election is that SageCons in particular have begun the process of eradicating those media outlets from their lifestyle. They're choosing different media from which they get their information and even their entertainment. But that's something, again, that we need to expand. But I said in the next few weeks, we need to be challenging our friends, our neighbors, our colleagues, people in our church. Where do you get your information from? Because if they're getting it from those sources, they're getting biased, probably erroneous information. Second thing that I suggest we can do is to encourage the people that we hang out with who are probably more of the quote-unquote intelligentsia within the Christian circles, and the fact that you're here means that you care, you're well-informed, you care about being informed. You probably hang out with people like yourself. But one thing that you can do is start to get those people to reach out. First of all, make sure they're doing it. Secondly, get them to talk to others. We can't be the group that's least likely to be conversing about elections with other people. We understand things that other people haven't even begun to talk about. And it's imperative that we start to share those things with them. Third thing I'd like to suggest to you is that that's only going to happen if our colleagues, our peers, our friends, our church members are informed. How do we inform them? I'm not saying this just because it's the iVoter people who got me here tonight. I actually put out a couple of reports about this over the last 2 or 3 years. But one of the things that our research has shown is that voter guides make a big difference. Why is that? The American people are lazy. I mean, let's just, and they want people to do the research for them. A lot of them are going to vote whether they do any background study or not. So if we can put a tool in their hand that will help them to vote more intelligently, that will help them to vote in a way that's really going to benefit America, why wouldn't we do that? We found out, for instance, related to voter guides, that conservative Christians think that voter guides are among the most influential tools that they have at their disposal. What we found is in the 2016 elections, 6 out of 10 conservative Christian voters said that they used one or more voter guides. And we found that almost 3 out of 4 of them said that those voter guides had a significant influence on the voting decisions that they made. So it wasn't just somewhere they were looking at, oh, this is interesting. It was actually changing the way that they thought, which in turn changed the way that they behaved, i.e. the way they voted. You know that the majority of them use the guides both for information about the candidates, but also about referenda and initiatives. We know that 6 out of 10 users also shared those guides with other people. You know, when I used to do research for Disney and other places in terms of advertising, that was one of the things we always looked at. What kind of pass-along audience numbers do you get? Because that's critical. You can't often go directly to a person, but if I can go to you and you share it with your spouse, and your spouse shares it with her best friend, and she shares it with her kids, suddenly you've got 4 people reading the document that was aimed at one individual. Well, that happens with voter guides as well. So that multiplies its influence and its impact, and that's a good thing. And very importantly, in a midterm election, so many of the races are what we would typically call down ballot races. They're not uppermost in people's minds. Presidential election, everybody knows who the presidential candidates are. They know something about them. You get 4 races down, they have no clue who these people are or even what the offices are. And so what we're finding is that the farther down ballot you go, the more influential guides tend to be. Because people have less information, less understanding, probably less interest, but they're going to vote for those offices anyway. And so it's critical that they have that information. So in addition to that, I suggest that we think about issues. We've got to be issue-driven people. It's not about personalities. And so we've done a lot of work this year trying to figure out what are the issues that matter to conservatives, the kinds of things that will motivate them to actually turn out to vote. And so I've got some of those listed up there, and then we've spent actually more of our time checking out messaging. What's the substance that we ought to be communicating to people in order to help them feel, yeah, I know where I stand on this issue, I know how to talk about this issue, I know what I'm looking for in a candidate on this issue. You know, so you take something like immigration, what we found with conservatives was, of all the different messages that we tested on that matter, the thing that really resonated with them is, you know what, this isn't about compassion, this isn't about breaking up families, which is a whole separate discussion. It's really about law and order and freedom. And when you put that issue in that context and help people to understand why we have laws, why we must carry out those laws, what our laws on immigration are, and the laws that we're seeking to get put into place in order to facilitate law and order and freedom, then it all begins to make more sense to people. But with all the shrill screaming back and forth about emotional stuff, that gets lost in the sauce. So we've got that for all these different issues. So, I mean, those are the kinds of things we need to be thinking about. Let me just close up by saying if it's true that our society is really built on 7 cultural pillars, or what some call 7 mountains of culture, then influencing each of those mountains is a critical challenge and responsibility to every follower of Christ. Much like the stage costume, I suspect that most people in here probably stage costumes, probably don't even know it. But we understand that we are here for such a time as this to change the world for the glory of God. And we do it through arts and entertainment. We do it through education. We do it through family. We do it through business and commerce. We do it through news and information media. We do it through churches and faith centers. We do it through government and politics. And so the thing for us to keep in mind is that 2 weeks from now, we have a window of tremendous opportunity to have great influence for Christ. And if we don't do everything we can between now and November 6th to exercise that influence that God has given to us for this window of opportunity, we're abandoning Him and His purposes.
I pray that during these next 2 weeks, you'll go into it with eyes open, looking for those chances that you have to talk to people, to give them information, to give them voter guides or other tools that are going to help people to vote intelligently and strategically for the best interests of our nation. Once again, I thank you so much for being here and listening to me, and God bless you.
Thank you, George. Now you understand why he's one of the most quoted people in America today, especially among safeguards. He takes all these complex issues and makes them attainable for us. Well, how do you kill 11 million people? How do you kill 11 million people? That's the name of a book I read on the plane this morning coming in. It's by Andy Andrews. Powerful little book. I bought it 2 weeks ago. I was up in the Panhandle of Florida. We were with some friends. We went to the little boutique the gal wanted to go into, and I saw the bookstore there on the shelf, and that title immediately caught my attention. Let me put it a different way. How did Adolf Hitler kill 11 million people? He lied. He lied to those people, and he lied to everyone else around them. That is how he killed 11 million people. George Barna's goal is to find out what is true and make that known to all the rest of us. The truth. Voter Guide, iVoter Guide, is about discerning what is true about each of the candidates and making that known to each and every one of us. Now, unlike many voter guides, and I know this because I used to be in politics and I know how we skewed many of the voter guides. iVoter Guide's goal is to give factual information to evaluate each candidate as honestly as possible and then print that information so that people know what is true. It's not about trying to make one candidate look better than the other or one candidate look worse than the other. It's about giving voters good information. Don't assume that every voter guide does that. Not every voter guide does. It's one of the reasons why I want to be a part of my voter guide. It's why I'm on the board. They want to do real, intellectually sound work. Let me ask you something. If you had $1,000 to spend in an election cycle, and you could choose between giving it all to one candidate, or maybe giving it to 10 candidates, or maybe giving part of that to Voter Guide, what would you do? I ask you that because here's the fact. Voter Guide influences multiple races. $100 to iVoter Guide has a multiplying effect. Now, I'm not saying don't give money to candidates. Please do. We have a number of men and women in this room who are worthy of your support. But keep in mind, every dollar you give to iVoter Guide is multiplied across numerous races and it has a multiplying effect in terms of its impact. So tonight I want to give you an opportunity. In fact, I want to give you the privilege. The privilege of impacting the future of America, the future of your children, the future of your children's children, by helping iVoter Guide help voters know who to vote for, simply by giving them good information. At each of your tables, there are envelopes, and if you can get it, I think, are there in the flyers? There are envelopes in the flyers, if you can take those out and look at them. And I think there are some pens on the table in that container if you don't have a pen. If you can take just a few minutes to fill those out, that would be great. But let me ask you again, how do you kill 11 million people?
how do you destroy America? You lie. You lie until it's too late. iVoter Guide is the best antidote I know of to the politicians who will lie and try to deceive their voters. Jesus was right. The truth will set you free. The truth can set America free. Well, while you're looking at those things, Briscoe, could you come on up? I want Briscoe just to tell you a little bit of the story of Briscoe Canyons, who we referred to here a little earlier this evening, about a gentleman who is now in office in part due to the efforts of the iVoter Guide team. Briscoe, come on up, take about 3 minutes and just kind of tell us about the story. And by the way, some people may think Briscoe's short, but I assure you he's not. He's just tightly wound, and you'll figure that out.
I think he's telling me to speak slowly. He's told that all the time. Well, howdy, I'm Briscoe King, my lovely wife, Bert, who's back there. My beautiful wife of 4 boys, by the way. And yes, we know how that got happened. We really do only have 1 TV in the house, believe it or not. You probably believe that we only have 1 TV. It's true. So, real quick, and then we'll explain the iVoter Guide thing. Things keep coming to me. Of course, we've seen in Hosea that my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. While I was sitting there, I was thinking of what some of the things the founders had said, and one of the things that reminded me is Thomas Jefferson had said, educate and inform the whole mass of the people. They're the only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty. John Adams said, liberty cannot be preserved without general knowledge among the people. John Jay, you recognize this, said, I consider knowledge to be the soul of a republic. When I was crazy enough to run against a chairman, I mean, he was a chairman his freshman term. Did you know that, Brian? It was pretty rare, right? In the House. And so here he is. He's got lots of money. He's a chairman his senior year. We get a lot of requests for these questionnaires, but I filled a questionnaire out for iVoter Guide. And as you can imagine, it's pretty wild running. We spent $160,000 to their $1.6 million. And for a while there during the runoff, so I'm just trying to be brief because you only give me 30 minutes. We get into a runoff, right? And every time I would look at my phone or looking at social media, we're seeing this iVoter Guide ad that's comparing, again, just factual information based on responses that the 2 candidates gave. And as much as I would have liked to have thought that Richard was doing me a favor, there was no favor in getting that. I was fully unable. It was my answers versus theirs, right? There was no spin. In fact, when it was presented, it said, here's the response of those 2 candidates, right? Completely just to allow people to make their own decision. 6,000 votes were cast in that runoff, and as Debbie had said, 500 were able to look at iVoter Guide. Now, I printed off a lot of those on my own, and we're passing them out as well. And again, because of that third-party information, that verification of those facts. And we won by 23 votes. And I believe this just wholeheartedly. Yes, we had to work hard, but iVoter Guide made a really, really big difference. So I guess maybe I should talk about some of those accomplishments in the House, but I went in as the youngest member, and I'm going back again as the youngest member. We created a little something called the Texas House Freedom Caucus. We got rid of Joe Strauss. That should get applause. If you don't know who that is, please, yeah, it's worth it, right? And my favorite thing, though, is being named the most or the worst legislator by Texas Monthly. And y'all helped me accomplish that, and I'll give you a quote. The quote, they said, when we asked Austin insiders who the worst legislator was, they almost universally said Briscoe King. So thank you, iVoter Guide, for sending me up there to make that terrible magazine's cover. Very, very proud of it. I look forward to doing it for you again. But just as a testimony and what you've done and where did Lisa go, maybe she's out campaigning, in that race, and getting rid of terrible Jason Villalba, but we couldn't do it without y'all. And so I would not have done it without iVoter Guide. And I hope y'all can help more candidates like myself that believe that Jesus Christ is the only way, the truth, and the light. And that knowledge is the only thing that's going to save our republic. So help iVoter Guide. Thank you.
Briscoe, thank you. Well, the envelopes that you fill out, just leave them on the table and we'll come by and pick them up. But thank you so much for coming and joining us. We are so grateful to you and we are honored. Art, would you come on up here and close us with the final benediction? Art has become a dear friend of mine. We're two comrades in arms down in Orlando trying to fight the good fight down there. Art, thank you.
Brother, thank you. Thanks for a good job. Thank you all for being here. There's some giants in this room. Thank you. Join me as we close. Lord, as we bring this annual conference to a close, we just want to thank you. Thank you for all those that are here. Thank you for the message. Thank you for the good work George Barnett does. Thank you for the fact that we're all on the same page of understanding who's really in charge. It ain't us, it is you. And help us really come to grips and not just lip service with the fact that if you don't build this house, we are laboring in vain. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be laboring. One of my favorite giants in all American history was Frederick Douglass. And when he wrote in some of his memoirs that he was on his knees for years praying and praying and praying that you would put an end to slavery, it wasn't until he got up on his feet that you started answering his prayers. Let us take a lesson for that, Lord, and let's be about your business. We've got a critical time ahead. If you don't intervene, we are toast. We're praying you do it again. You did it 2 years ago, Lord, and we pray for a tidal wave of your people, not just ours, your people to be swept into public office. We need good leaders, and help us stand behind them, because they don't need to be winning elections and then standing alone. So we commit it to you. We thank you. We know who's in charge. And we just pray safe passage and journeys home for everybody here. Thank you for the attendance. Thank you for iVoter Guide and the leadership. And Richard Ford is just when he gets home with you, I would love to be a fly on the wall and see all the crowns, or the jewels in his crown. Thank you, we praise you, we love you, and we ask it all in Jesus' name. Amen. We're done.
If it was not for iVoter Guide, I would not be a member of the Texas legislature. iVoter Guide presented information in an unbiased, factual way.